Chapter 1, The Pit House. The house came cheap because the land was undesirable. That was the word the man used when he handed Sarah and Eric the keys, his eyes never quite meeting theirs. He didn't smile. Just handed over the folder and drove off like he was late for something. The house sat alone, 3 miles up a cracked gravel road in rural West Virginia, surrounded by woods so dense they looked black even at noon. A one-story rancher with moss crawling up the siding and a roof sagging under years of neglect. The gutters were missing. The mailbox was held together with duct tape. A barn behind the house leaned so hard it looked like it was bracing for a fight with the wind. Still, it was theirs. Sarah tried to smile as they unloaded boxes from the truck. Eric made jokes to keep the air light. Even Lily, their 6-year-old niece, seemed happy to run barefoot through the dying grass. But Sarah felt it. Not something she could point at. Just a stillness. A pressure in the chest. Like the house was holding its breath. Inside, the house smelled of mothballs and mildew. The floors bowed. The wallpaper curled like dead skin. But they could fix it. They had to. After years of scraping by, this was their first real chance to build a home, especially for Lily, who hadn't said more than a few words since her father overdosed last spring. The living room had a sunken floor, shag carpet stained with decades of life. In the center sat a square of metal, flush with the ground, like a trapdoor, maybe an old cellar access. Except it was sealed with a thick layer of concrete. Not welded. Not nailed. Sealed. They asked the realtor about it before the move. He said it was nothing. An old coal chute that had been closed off years ago. Harmless. Sarah wasn't so sure. The first night, Lily pointed at the hatch and said, "Uncle Matt's under there." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "What did you say, sweetie?" Lily looked at her with that flat expression she always wore when she said something she didn't quite understand. "He's cold." Eric laughed it off. "She's just remembering the funeral, babe. Let it go." But that night, Sarah dreamed she was standing in the woods behind the house, barefoot in wet leaves. A wind moved through the trees, but the branches didn't sway. The ground beneath her opened like a mouth, and from it rose the sound of her brother sobbing, long, choking cries. Then whispers. "I'm not dead. I'm buried." She woke up with dirt under her fingernails. On the third night, the scratching started. Faint at first. Like mice in the walls. Then louder. More deliberate. Not like something moving around, more like something trying to get out. Sarah pressed her ear to the floor. It stopped immediately. Eric swore it was the plumbing. Old pipes. Rats, maybe. "You want me to pry that thing open?" "For what? To find a possum and lose our deposit?" But it wasn't the pipes. It wasn't rats. She started finding Lily's toys arranged in perfect circles around the hatch every morning. Dolls staring downward. Cars pointing in. The dog, an old mutt named Tally, refused to enter the living room altogether. He'd sit at the doorway and growl, low and slow, lips twitching. The heater broke on the 5th night. Eric went to town for parts. Sarah stayed behind with Lily and tried to keep her distracted. At dusk, the lights dimmed. Then flickered. Then died completely. The power outage lasted only minutes, but when the lights came back, the hatch was wet. Not flooded, just damp around the edges, like it had been sweating. That night, Lily stood by Sarah's bed and whispered, "He's mad at you." Sarah sat up. "Who is?" "The one under the house." She didn't sleep. The next day, she tried to call the realtor. Number disconnected. That night, Lily was gone. Her bed empty. The window open. The dog, Tally. was found in the backyard with his spine snapped in two, bent backward like he'd been yanked by something too big for this world. They called the sheriff. No answer. They searched the woods, the barn, the road. Nothing. No prints. No broken twigs. Not even a scream. Then, just before dawn, Sarah heard it. From beneath the hatch. "Mommy." Lily's voice. "I'm cold." Eric ran for the crowbar. He didn't even hesitate. The concrete cracked, coughing dust into the air. The metal hatch groaned like it hadn't been touched in 100 years. When it opened, the smell hit them first, like something wet and burning. Rotten blood and old metal. A heat rose from below, unnatural and heavy. Beneath the hatch was a spiral staircase made of black stone, descending into pure darkness. No cobwebs. No dust. The air pulsed, like it was breathing. Sarah turned on the flashlight. The walls of the stairwell were lined with handprints, pressed into the stone. Some large. Most small. All of them pointed upward. They descended. Each step deeper felt like years were peeling off their bodies. Sarah's nose bled. Eric's skin went pale. The air down there wasn't just warm, it was hungry. At the bottom was a corridor made of old brick, stained and dripping. And in the distance, they heard it, the soft sound of a child singing. Lily's voice. They ran. They found her standing in a chamber the size of a swimming pool, filled with bones, some animal, some clearly not. She was unharmed. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, crawling along the wall, was a shape that didn't make sense. Too many limbs. Skin stretched thin over a body that moved wrong. Its face was human, but upside down. Its mouth was full of teeth that whistled when it breathed. It saw them. And it smiled. They ran. They didn't speak of what they saw. Not to each other. Not to anyone. They drove until the gas ran out, then ran on foot. When they finally reached the next town, the police listened. Nodded. Then quietly walked away. No one investigated. No one believed them. And when they tried to return with a journalist 2 weeks later, the house was gone. Not burned. Not demolished. Gone. Grass grew where it stood. Trees had reclaimed the land. Not a single piece of the foundation remained. And in the exact center of that empty field, Sarah saw it, half buried in the dirt. A square of rusted metal. Still wet. Still breathing. Chapter 2, The Boy in the Floorboards. The farmhouse was part of the deal. That's what the papers said. Harold Owens bought the land cheap after his father died. 40 acres of corn, 3 rusted silos, and a crumbling, 2-story home that hadn't been lived in since 1963. No electricity. No plumbing. But the bones were strong. It's just a structure, his wife Dana had said. 4 walls and a roof. What matters is what we build inside it. They brought their son Jonah. 7 years old. Quiet kid. Obsessed with flashlights, carried 2 everywhere. The only thing he asked when they arrived was if the house had a basement. No basement, Harold told him. Just a crawlspace. Rats maybe, but no monsters. Jonah nodded like he already knew. The house had a smell that didn't match its age, like rotting sugar. The wooden floorboards creaked as if whispering underfoot. Dust coated everything. But there was no graffiti. No signs of squatters. Like no one had dared step inside in decades. The front door had 4 locks on the inside. They started fixing it up on day 2. Ripped out the carpeting, scrubbed mold off the windows, replaced a broken window in Jonah's room. That night, he had a nightmare. Harold found him sitting upright in bed, flashlight clutched in both hands, shaking. "What is it, buddy?" Jonah pointed at the floor. "He's under me." "Who?" "The boy." Harold gave a tired smile. "There's no one under there, Jonah. Probably just your imagination." Jonah didn't speak. Just pointed again. Harold got down, shined his flashlight through a crack in the floorboards. Nothing but darkness. He dismissed it. But that night, after the storm knocked the power out, Harold went to check on Jonah. The boy was asleep. But the flashlight on the floor was still on, and pointing downward. The next day, Dana heard something beneath the kitchen while she was doing dishes. Not mice. Not pipes. Something tapping from below. Rhythmic. Childlike. She assumed Jonah had crawled under the porch. When she looked out the window, Jonah was in the barn. That night, Harold stayed up late with a six-pack and a hammer, determined to patch the boards in Jonah's room. When he pried one loose, he found something tucked beneath it. A photograph. Faded and cracked, but still visible, a small boy, no more than 6, standing in the same room. Same wallpaper. Same floor. Same old curtains. But the most chilling part wasn't the photo itself. It was what was written on the back, in shaky red ink. "Do not feed him after dark." Jonah changed over the next week. He stopped eating during the day. Began whispering to himself in corners. He spent hours on the floor, ear pressed to the wood, listening. He drew pictures of boys with missing eyes and mouths sewn shut. One picture showed the family, himself, Dana, and Harold, standing next to a fourth figure drawn in all black with long fingers and feet that ended in nails. When asked who it was, Jonah just said, "He lives down there." Harold finally snapped. At 2 a.m., after hearing what sounded like fingernails dragging along the underside of the floor, he pulled out his toolbox and pried open the crawlspace hatch behind the house. The air that came out was thick, damp, and smelled like meat. He dropped inside with a flashlight and a crowbar. The space was tight. Just a few feet high. But the soil was disturbed. Loose. Dug through. And in the far corner, he saw something move. Not fast. Not even afraid. It was a small boy. Naked. Pale. Too pale. Skin like candle wax. Thin ribs showing through, and a head that turned slowly to meet Harold's flashlight beam. The boy smiled, and his teeth were wrong, all baby teeth, even in the back. Rows of them. Then Harold saw his own son standing behind the boy, in the shadows. "Jonah?" But Jonah didn't respond. He smiled, too. Chapter 3, Crawlspace Radio. He picked up the signal at 3:09 a.m. It came through the static like someone whispering through a pillow. Leo had driven 10 hours straight from Phoenix, chasing old ghost town photographs and broken Route 66 signs for a blog no one read anymore. Somewhere outside Clovis, he lost cell service, missed the turn for a gas station, and ended up at a roadside motel called the Dust Stop, 6 rooms, 1 vending machine, and no other guests. The woman at the desk was asleep when he arrived. He had to knock twice. She didn't speak, just handed him a key with a number 4 stickered to it. The room smelled like mildew and pine disinfectant. The air conditioner wheezed like it was dying. Leo plugged in his portable ham radio just to kill time, scanning frequencies aimlessly until HHKK. Testing, 1-2, it's dark down here, but we're still talking, folks. His hand froze. The voice was low. Gravelly. Calm. Not a station. Not a song. A man speaking softly, like he was inside a tunnel. "If you're out there, and you can hear this, welcome to the night. I'm your host, JD, and this is Crawlspace Radio. Broadcasting from somewhere you'll never find. Leo grinned. Pirate radio. This was gold for his blog. He grabbed a pen and started transcribing. The signal faded in and out, like it was being pulled through wet concrete. Sometimes JD would cut off mid-sentence, and static would take over. Sometimes Leo could swear he heard breathing behind the voice. Remember the rules, friends. If someone knocks 3 times, don't answer. If the voice on the phone don't match the face you saw this morning, hang up. And whatever you do, don't open the door with the red chalk mark. You might not like what's on the other side. Leo laughed. Creepy little theater piece, he muttered. Good shit. Then he realized something. There was a red chalk mark on the inside of his motel room door. At 4:11 a.m., the voice came back, clearer than before. We've got a new listener tonight. A traveler, Arizona plate, room number 4. Leo sat up straight. You like radios, don't you, Leo? You like little voices that tell you where not to look. He turned the unit off. The signal kept playing. JD's voice came from the motel speakers now. The ones built into the ceiling. You should have stayed on the road, Leo. Leo grabbed his bag and ran. The motel lobby was dark. No staff. No sign of anyone. But the front door was wide open, blowing in warm, metallic-smelling air. Outside, the desert looked wrong. Like it was flickering. Like reality was trying to hold on to itself. The horizon bent unnaturally, like a lens too close to the edge. JD's voice followed him. From the speakers. From the radio. From the vents. You're listening to Crawlspace Radio. If you can hear us, we can see you. He got in the car, turned the key. It clicked. Over and over. Battery dead. In the rearview mirror, someone stood at the edge of the road. Long coat. Wide smile. Old-fashioned microphone in one hand, dragging a cord that slithered across the gravel. Leo opened the glove box. The radio inside was on. JD's voice, now barely a whisper. Don't run. You're already inside the broadcast. They never found the motel again. Leo's blog stopped updating. His last post was a blurry photo of a red door standing alone in the desert, half buried in sand. No building. No frame. Just the door. No one answered the comments. No one knows who JD is. But if you're ever driving between 3 and 4 a.m. in the American Southwest, tune your radio slowly through the static. If you hear a voice say, testing, 1 2. Don't stop the car. Don't sleep near a vent. And never, ever open the red-marked door. Chapter 4, Little Mouths. Lyle always chewed on things. Pencils. Shirt collars. The ends of his hair. Sometimes his fingers, until the skin split and he sucked at the blood like it was honey. His mom told the school it was a nervous habit, something he'd grow out of. But he didn't. By 10 years old, he had cavities in nearly every molar. He never cried at the dentist. He just watched the drill, eyes unblinking, mouth wide, like he was waiting for something to come out instead of go in. When he turned 11, the chewing got worse. He started gnawing at the walls. Not drywall flakes or paint chips, wood. The corners of the nightstand. The edge of the stair rail. Anything he could sink his teeth into. Then came the incident with the cat. His mom found a pile of fur in the basement, a tail, and a half-eaten ribcage. Lyle was sitting on the floor nearby, dazed, blood on his chin. He claimed he found it like that. She wanted to believe him. She really did. They sent him to a therapist. That lasted 2 sessions before he bit the man's thumb to the bone. Around this time, Lal began to complain about a pain in his mouth. Not a toothache. Not a sore. Something deeper. They're waking up, he'd whisper in his sleep. His mother started recording him. One night, the recording picked up a wet clicking noise, like chewing, but Lyle was completely still. The sound wasn't coming from his mouth. It was coming from inside his throat. At his next dental appointment, the hygienist called the dentist in halfway through the cleaning. They spoke in hushed voices. The dentist asked Lyle to open wide, then wider still. What he saw made him step back. In the soft tissue behind Lyle's molars, something moved. It wasn't infection. It was growth. Little folds of pink tissue, lined with tiny white shapes, teeth. A second row. Then a third. Something inside Lyle was forming a new mouth. Lyle's mom pulled him from school. He stopped speaking. Refused to eat anything but raw meat. She'd catch him leaning over the sink at night, gagging, as if feeding something in his own throat. A pediatric specialist agreed to do an exploratory procedure under sedation. Lyle's mom was in the observation room. What she saw on the monitor would stay with her forever. The scope went down his throat, past his tonsils, and then into a pocket of flesh that shouldn't exist. Inside, illuminated by the light, were teeth. Dozens. In small, concentric circles. Then they bit the scope. The camera cut out. Lyle woke up screaming and kept screaming for 6 hours. He tore at his throat until they had to sedate him again. He never spoke again. The official term was horrorstoma, but no one had seen anything like it. Not this large. Not active. They removed what they could surgically, but the mouths grew back. And worse, they multiplied. One behind the left ear. One just under the ribs. One hidden under the skin of the inner thigh. Each one small, lined with enamel, twitching. Hungry. His mother tried to hide them with bandages. But she heard them at night, wet clicking, soft chewing. Sometimes whispers. Eventually, Lyle ran away. They found his body 2 weeks later in an abandoned greenhouse. Or what was left of it. He had been eaten from the inside out. The coroner counted 15 mouths, most fused to nerves and muscle tissue. Some had swallowed pieces of bone. One had a half-formed tongue. None of them matched Lyle's dental records. The case was buried. No official cause of death. No photos released. Just whispers. A few years later, a nurse from the surgical team was found dead in her home, throat torn open from the inside. Her autopsy revealed tooth buds growing in her esophagus. And 1 week later, her daughter began complaining of a sore spot under her tongue. If you ever feel something small and sharp behind your molars. If you hear something wet moving beneath your own breath. If you ever wake up chewing, but your jaw is still. It's not yours. Not anymore. Chapter 5, The Hollow Ones. The store was never supposed to be open 24 hours. Corporate made the change after some internal study found shoppers wanted round-the-clock access to deals. Management hated it. The workers hated it more. A skeleton crew held down the graveyard shift, 3 people covering 100,000 square feet of cold tile, fluorescent buzz, and aisles that all felt the same after midnight. Inventory robots scanned shelves in silence, like insects sliding over a corpse. Maya worked soft lines, clothing, shoes, accessories. She had one earbud in and a box cutter in hand, restocking infant pajamas in a section that was always too quiet. Behind her, the mannequins stood in a tight little group, as if they were talking. There were 5 in her section. She didn't like them. They weren't creepy at first. Just faceless plastic bodies in cheap athletic wear, posed mid-stride or with their plastic hands on their hips. But after 2 weeks on night shift, Maya swore she saw them shift slightly out of the corner of her eye. One night, she found one facing the wrong direction. Another time, one was standing a little too far from where it had been the night before. She asked around. Derek, who ran maintenance, just chuckled. They do that. Everyone notices eventually. You'll get used to it. It got worse the third week. Maya clocked in, walked to her section, and stopped cold. There were 6 mannequins. All perfectly still. All staring at the same spot, her register. She told security. They rolled their eyes. Probably someone from days moved one over to your zone. Just will it back. So she did. The next night, there were 7. Same position. Same posture. Same perfect stillness. But their fingers looked different. Longer. She turned one of their arms to check the seam line, where the forearm connects. No seam. Just smooth, pale, plastic skin. She called Derek. He came out to look. Shined his flashlight into one of the faces. Then without a word, he grabbed Maya by the shoulder and whispered, "Don't ever touch them again." She followed him into the maintenance corridor behind the store. The hallway smelled like copper and old water. Derek sat down on an overturned mop bucket, hands shaking. "You ever wonder why this store doesn't have a mannequin room?" he asked. Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" "Most stores keep them stored somewhere when they're not used. Old ones. Spares. Broken ones. This place doesn't have that. Never has. You ever seen one arrive on a truck?" She thought about it. "No. Never. They don't come in shipments. They just show up." Later that night, Maya walked the floor alone. Something was buzzing in the air, fluorescent hum, maybe, but deeper. Like a throat clearing in the dark. She passed a mannequin that looked newer than the others. Its head turned. Just slightly. She froze. A quiet scraping sound came from the end of the aisle. Another mannequin had moved. Not walked. Not posed. Moved, mid-blink, like reality had stuttered. Maya turned to run. But in the reflection of the glass freezer, she saw her own mannequin standing behind her. Identical hair. Identical uniform. Only difference was the smile. It was wide. Too wide. She blacked out. When she woke up, it was 5:55 a.m. The sun was just rising. Her radio buzzed. "Where the hell have you been?" the manager barked. She was on the opposite end of the store. No memory of walking there. Her palms were sore. Her name tag was gone. So was one mannequin. Maya never returned to work. She quit that afternoon, packed her car, and left town. But a week later, her coworker Jenna sent her a photo. It showed the women's sportswear section. And standing just behind the register was a new mannequin. Slight tilt in the head. Familiar posture. Same facial features. Same uniform. Same name tag, MWA. You can go to that store today. There are 13 mannequins now. But only 12 were ever ordered. And at exactly 3:33 a.m., if you stand in the center of the women's section and close your eyes, you'll feel something breathing behind you. And when you open them, one of them will be closer. Chapter 6, The Freezer Door. The men at Outpost Echo 7 weren't scientists. Not really. They were contractors. Engineers. Grunts. Hired to monitor seismic sensors and keep power running through a corridor of U.S. research stations left behind after the Cold War. There was no real oversight, no direct communication with the mainland, just scheduled radio check-ins and monthly supply drops. The cold was unreal. Cold that made your bones ache. Cold that whispered to you in your sleep. Cold that you didn't escape, you just got used to it. It was in early December when they found the door. Jorgensen was the one who noticed the tunnel, half collapsed under the snowfield behind the generator shed. Looked like a sinkhole, maybe part of an old glacial research site. He and Torres roped in with flashlights and flares. They found a man-made shaft, descending at a steep angle. Reinforced concrete walls, frost-covered light fixtures, all ancient and humming with quiet dread. At the bottom of the slope was a metal door, 8 feet tall and covered in red ice. Built into the glacier itself. There were no hinges. No visible lock. Just an inscription. Do not open until told. They didn't open it right away. They radioed it in. No response. Just static. They took photos. Logged it in the base report. But the next day, the door was warm. Not wet. Not melting. Warm. Jorgensen touched it and immediately vomited. He didn't say what he saw, just kept repeating, the metal isn't metal. It's listening. That night, Torres started sleepwalking. They found him outside in bare feet, standing in the snow, staring at the ice wall with his mouth open. On the third night, the door was open. Just a crack. No sound. No marks. Just open a few inches, like a whisper waiting to slip out. They debated sealing it. But something was leaking out now, a smell. Not rot. Not sulfur. Something older. Like the memory of breath. Jorgensen left a note that night. It remembers warmth. It wants us to feed it. Then he vanished. One by one, the men started changing. Their eyes stayed open in sleep. Their breath no longer fogged the air. One man, Cooper, began stuffing insulation down his throat, saying he was trying to muffle the voices. The logbooks became rambling. Disconnected. Some pages were covered in drawings, long-limbed things curled into coils, eyeless faces pressing against glass. When Torres finally cracked, he opened the door all the way. They found him the next morning with all his teeth missing and a note carved into the freezer floor. It is through the teeth that it speaks. A week later, the station went dark. No transmissions. No signal. When a rescue team arrived in January, they found the place empty. No signs of struggle. No blood. Just 3 things. Every light bulb removed and stacked neatly by the main door. A radio, still broadcasting static with the faint sound of breathing underneath. The door at the tunnel, now sealed again. Frozen completely over. But this time, the inscription was different. Carved into the ice by fingernails. It read. We never closed it. They left the door buried. No follow-up teams were sent. But every few years, on the coldest winter nights, shortwave operators across the northern hemisphere report picking up a strange signal. A low hum. Then silence. Then a voice, cracked, hollow, human and not. You are warm. Let me remember. Chapter 7, The House That Remembers You. Rachel didn't believe in ghosts. But grief rewires the brain. It bends reality at the edges. Makes you see things you know can't be there. After her sister Amelia disappeared in 2012, Rachel never stopped searching. Even when the cops gave up. Even when their mother drank herself into a silent, swollen death. Even when Rachel began to doubt if Amelia had ever really existed. And then, one Tuesday in early spring, she found the house. She'd never seen it before. She drove the same route to work every day for years. But on that morning, nestled between 2 old Victorians on a street she swore was only empty lots, stood a white house with green shutters. Weather-worn. Quiet. Familiar. Too familiar. She pulled over, heart skipping. That front porch. That cracked window. That swing. It was the house they grew up in. But that house burned down in 2009. She saw the flames. Saw her father's oxygen tank explode. Saw Amelia standing in the window upstairs, screaming as the floor gave way. Yet here it was, uncanny and complete. Rachel stepped out of the car. The inside smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. Wallpaper curled at the edges, just like she remembered. The stairs creaked in the same order when you climbed them, right foot, left foot, pause. The living room had the floral couch. The rug. The framed photo of a family that didn't look like hers, but felt like hers. And the upstairs hallway light flickered the same way it had before the fire. On. Off. On. Pause. A pattern. Rachel followed it. Amelia's door was closed. Rachel hadn't said her sister's name aloud in years, but her mouth formed it now, Amelia. The door opened without her touching it. Inside, everything was pristine. Her sister's posters. Her old bedding. A half-finished drawing still on the desk. Then Rachel saw the girl sitting on the bed. Back turned. Long black hair. Bare feet dangling just above the floor. Amelia, she whispered. The girl turned. It was her. But not 12. Not frozen in memory. This Amelia was older. Pale. Skin drawn tight like she'd never left the house. Like she had grown into it. I was waiting, she said. Rachel ran. Down the stairs. Through the kitchen. Into the front yard. Except there was no front yard. Just hallway. Another staircase. Another bedroom. The house had shifted. It had rewritten itself. She ran through room after room. Each one a scene from her childhood. Her 7th birthday. Her mother's pills on the bathroom sink. Her father slumped in the recliner with dead eyes and the TV playing static. Then again, Amelia's room. No matter which way she ran, she always returned to that door. She opened it one final time. Amelia sat there still, but now her eyes were bleeding. Her fingers twitching. Behind her, the walls pulsed like lungs. You left me, Amelia said, voice echoing twice, one in Rachel's ears, the other in her bones. I didn't. Rachel sobbed. You forgot. I couldn't. You did. And now we remember you. The bed split open. Not cracked. Not torn. Just peeled, like a wound exposing rot beneath the sheets. Long hands reached up. Not grabbing. Inviting. Rachel felt her body move forward against her will. The house didn't creak or groan. It sighed. And closed the door behind her. Weeks later, a real estate agent passed the same street. Saw an old white house with green shutters. For sale, no owner listed. No records. But inside, upstairs, on the wall of the last bedroom, scratched into peeling paint, were 5 words. The house will remember you. And a name in dried blood below it. Rachel Owens. Chapter 8, The Rag Man. Everyone in the neighborhood knew the rule. Don't do laundry past 1 a.m. Especially not at Speedy Suds, the only 24-hour laundromat on Halbert Avenue. The reason varied depending on who you asked. Old Miss Evelina swore it was a devil. He walks and dressed like a man but leaves in your skin, she'd say with a cigarette between her teeth. Jared, the night janitor, claimed the security cams never caught him. Just long stretches of static where machines turned themselves on and doors slammed for no reason. But the teenagers said it best. If the rag man folds your clothes, you disappear. Jonas didn't believe in stories. He was broke, jobless, and 5 days behind on rent. That week, the hotel he'd been squatting in changed locks and tossed his suitcase in a dumpster. The only clean clothes he had left were the ones on his back. So at 1:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, Jonas walked into Speedy Suds with a garbage bag full of damp shirts and jeans. The place was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. One machine was running in the corner, forgotten or abandoned, but otherwise silent. He fed his quarters in and sat down. That's when he noticed the sign taped to the wall above the folding table. Do not leave unattended. Do not fall asleep. Do not fold anything that isn't yours. Jonas chuckled. Urban legend crap. Dumb kids. He put in his earbuds and dozed off. When he woke up, it was 3:03 a.m. And someone had folded his laundry. Neat piles. Crisp corners. Like a hotel housekeeper had gone through it. But there were more than just his clothes. On top of his black hoodie sat something new. A beige long-sleeve shirt made of rough linen. Old. Yellowed at the collar. Too clean. And resting on top of it, a rag doll. Homemade. Button eyes. No mouth. A body stitched from the same linen. Jonas frowned. Someone's messing with me. He picked up the shirt to toss it, and something fell out. A tooth. A human tooth. He turned to leave and froze. The machine in the corner was still running. But now there was something inside, pressing against the glass. Pale limbs. A soaked face. Hands slapping slow, rhythmic against the door like it wasn't trying to escape, just trying to be noticed. He staggered back. The power flickered. And then all the machines turned on at once. Every washer. Every dryer. All of them shaking. Doors clanging. Soap dispensers bubbling over. The noise was deafening. And above it all, a voice whispered, barely audible over the hum. You left your clothes behind. Jonas ran. But as he reached for the door, it wouldn't budge. Locked. From the outside. He turned. The lights cut. Only the red glow of exit signs and the green LED timer lights remained. And in that darkness, by the folding table, stood a man. He was tall, bony, wrapped in linen. Not clothing, strips, like gauze soaked in tea. His face was covered in layers of fabric stitched crudely into his skin. Arms too long. Fingers narrow and sharp, dragging behind him like measuring tape. In one hand, he held a crumpled sock. In the other, a jawbone. Jonas screamed. The rag man tilted his head slowly. Don't leave a mess, he said in a voice made of steam and lint. Then he unfolded, his body breaking into creases, and stepped forward like origami unraveling itself in the dark. Jonas was never seen again. But the next night, at 1:12 a.m., the laundromat security alarm triggered. The camera footage cut out. And when the owner opened up the next morning, she found a neat stack of clothes on the folding table. On top, a hoodie with the name Jonas sewn into the collar. Sitting quietly on it was the same rag doll. Except now it had a mouth stitched on, wide, crooked, and smiling. If you ever have to do laundry at night, don't fold what isn't yours. Don't wear what you didn't bring. And if you see a forgotten doll in the lint trap, leave. Immediately. The rag man only folds what he's keeping.